This next Starbolt storyline is going to be so awesome. I can't wait to see it in full 16-bit sprite glory.
Chris!
I feel like I should be working on something else. Oh well.
Yes, you should be working on a video.
Video?
Yes, a video! And I'll even give you a topic. Action Comics number 1000. Doesn't it just sound perfect?
I have got to get an unlisted number.
Yeah, you kinda do, but that's besides the point. This comic came out a good while ago. Quite a while. And yet, you didn't review it yet. You're slipping, man. When I have a better review schedule than you do, we got a problem here.
Slipping? When's the next History of One Pants, Zenith?
Fair enough. Just review the comic already. I want to see you get back in the groove after taking such a long break. I mean, what do we do without your reviews? Go to The Last Angry Geek or Linkara? Psh, that's child's play. We need someone who can really tackle the issues.
It's only been a month or so.
That's 5 years in internet time, Chris. Do you know how many shows I've created in that amount of time? Just roll the intro, or so help me God, I will slap you into next week and delay my cameo by a month.
Okay. Rolling the intro. Sheesh. He's a strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with abilities far beyond those of mortal men. For 80 years, he laid the groundwork for what every superhero who came after him should be. It doesn't matter if they were from Marvel, DC, Image, or an independent publisher. He stands for truth, justice, and the American way. He was one of the first true superheroes the world had ever known, and his name is Superman. Created by bicycle shop owners Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster in 1938, Superman immediately took the world by storm because he championed for the rights of the downtrodden during the most depressing days of the Great Depression. He is the ultimate immigrant since he came from the doomed planet of Krypton and settled on our world. From there, he dedicated his life to protecting humanity, and writers have always maintained that noble aspect of the character, even when styles of writing have changed to meet the demands of an ever-changing world. To this day, there is no one on this planet who does not know who the Man of Steel is. He is that famous. I'd be lying if I said I didn't know who Superman was. Growing up in the early 80s, my family and I would watch all of the Superman movies, and they were epic. The first two, anyway. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Superman has had many iterations and incarnations over the years, from Super Friends to Smallville to countless other forms of media. I think I need to dedicate an entire video to cover them all. Even then, I'd still only be scratching the surface. To celebrate the Man of Steel's 80th anniversary, I decided to cover Action Comics 1000. I can't begin to tell you how much of a landmark comic this is. I'll try anyway. Action Comics number 1000 is an anthology book akin to those anthologies that were out in the 1930s and 40s during the golden age of comics. Various writers who have written Superman over the years have lent their skill to this book, including Dan Jurgens, aka the man who killed Superman. Show of hands, who thought that this comic was going to be huge back in 1992? Yeah, I didn't think so. The comic is an 80-page giant, and I think I'm only going to cover the first one by Jurgens. Louise Simonson and other writers have also lent their skills, and I might go into detail about that and other stories a little later. Action Comics 1000 is a landmark issue because not only is it rare to see a comic reach 1,000 issues uninterrupted, it also represents over 1,000 comics starring the last son of Krypton. It all started here in Action Comics #1 from 1938, and today is considered to be the rarest and most valuable comic book ever made. Some people have actually found copies of the comic embedded in the walls of their house. In decent condition, too. If you find something like that, you are set for life. Will this comic be just as valuable? Well, my 10 copies say probably. I mean, the comic was like $10 brand new, so I don't know. The cover of the anthology is something one might come to expect with Superman. He's standing with his fist on his hips with his cape billowing in the breeze. Behind him is his home city of Metropolis, with the Daily Planet right behind him. I gotta give props for DC for giving his red underoos again. Linkara's right, having red trunks diffuses the blue on the suit a bit. It's iconic, just like this pose. I'm not saying you shouldn't change the character's look. Spidey's gone through many costume changes. I'm just saying that the trunks work best for this character. This is also just one of many great variant covers celebrating 8 decades of our hero, and all of them are really cool. Jurgen's story begins in space. The Man of Steel is going about his business trying to save the galaxy from some purple bubble thing, and the narration boxes have a kid asking where his father is. The mother explains that he's busy, but he'll be there. The kid, named Jonathan as we later find out, explains that he hates things like this. To which his mom replies, "Clark will be here." Superman has a kid and is happily married to Lois Lane? Excuse me for a minute, I'm gonna go rant at Marvel. While Lois waits for her husband to show up, Clark is having a great time off fighting the Khund warriors. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Khund sounds like the noise you make when somebody punches you in the stomach. Apparently these Khunds are rebels with their eyes set on Earth. Will the Man of Steel be able to defeat them? The baddies attempt to flee and Soup smashes through a wall. I would say it's like the Kool-Aid Man, but let's be honest, Superman has been doing that long before that sugar-encrusted jug of flavored water ever did. Clark is successful in disabling the ship. It's dead in the water and he tosses it through the nearest Stargate. He flies home and wishes that there had been more kind friends of his out there so he could avoid the ceremony. In the park, Lois and Johnny wait for Superman, and finally he shows up in a civilian guise, Clark Kent, ace reporter for the Daily Planet. Daily Planet. Superheroes do like to hang around newspapers, don't they? I still think that Peter Parker is a better photographer than Jimmy Olsen ever was. Yeah, I went there. Clark doesn't think he should be at the event, or whatever's going on. There could be a huge armada of Khunds out there. Not to mention Zows and Pops. There's a whole universe of species named after sound effects that need punching, Lois. Lois berates Clark for stalling, and he really doesn't like going to these events because that's not why he does what he does. She still wants him to do it for the people. After all, he's the one they came to thank. Hey, she's even wearing a Superman t-shirt under her shirt. According to Johnny, she had been waiting to do the trademark shirt rip all day. Mind out of the gutter, everyone. Behind the Super family, the mayor or someone is on stage declaring that today is the day they recognize the man who has saved them time and time again. Today is apparently Superman Day in Metropolis. The Flash Museum in Central City is also having a parade in the Flash's honor, and I think Batman Awareness Month begins next week. Meanwhile, the Marvel superheroes sigh in frustration. It's okay, guys. You're still clobbering the DC universe at the box office. Clark suspects he hears something as Lois gets a call from their boss, Perry White. He dismisses it, and the family goes about their business. The mayor turns to Captain Maggie Sawyer of the Metropolis Police Department, and she explains how she'd like to think that the cops are fully capable of handling themselves 99% of the time. Sorry. You're just very sure of yourself, lady. Sawyer admits that every now and then something turns up and they call on Superman to save the day. Like when hostages are involved or innocent lives are on the line. I think that's more than 1%. Regardless, as good as her team is, there's no way she could have gotten everyone out alive in various situations without the Man of Steel. The mayor brings out the next speaker, and the crowd wants to see Superman. In fact, they're chanting his name. Uh-oh, it's turning into San Diego Comic-Con! It turns out that the next speaker is the man who was turned in by Superman. Apparently he caught him stealing an old Chevy, and later he caught him breaking into Star Labs. The third time around, he moved up a notch. Clark's son wonders why they let a criminal talk. Clark just wants his son to listen. Clark listens intently as the man explains his backstory. Bad guys like the Toy Man and others hired him, and idiots like him, to be a nameless thug. It never worked on this guy because Supes listened to him and tried to get through to the guy so he could learn from his mistakes. He didn't want to bust the poor guy. He wanted to help him. And that, my friends, is Superman in a nutshell. The last time the ex-con was caught, and apparently dressed like the Punisher, he was smuggling plutonium. Superman knew of the man's money issues and past, so he put in a good word for the guy. He got a decent job, and all he wants to do now is see him to thank him. Wow, is somebody cutting onions? Clark reminds his son that this is why they let him speak. People can always be better, and that we should always have hope. That is what the S symbol in Kryptonian means, right? The next speaker is Perry White, and it turns out that Lois really wasn't talking to Perry on the phone all this time. Whoops. That Lois Lane, always tricking people. Perry begins to speak and Clark slinks away to change into Superman. Apparently, he senses something is wrong. Is it the Cluds again, or is it the Smacks? I'm betting it's the Pows. It doesn't matter. Superman flies off as Perry talks about how he appears whenever they need him. Ignoring that, Clark figures that the Kuns did something to Lois to make her not be aware of any danger. He knew he should have checked for more ships out there. The crowd notices the Man of Steel and he hears a voice telling him to go back to the party. We can handle this. He turns and sees Wonder Woman, and he asks, who is we? It's his friends. His super friends. Huh? Forget it. I can't get this joke to work. Diana lets Superman know that the Kuns landed battleships all over the world, and the Justice League took care of the problem. It was touch and go, but they handled it like Earth's mightiest heroes should. Yes, I'm giving the Justice League the Avengers title, and I don't care. Apparently it was impossible. He would have known there were more ships out there. John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, used his telepathic abilities to manipulate Clark into thinking he saw something else. Martians. You can't trust them. 1 minute they're gigantic ice warriors, and the next they're little tiny people with Roman Centurion outfits. Lois apparently was the mastermind behind the idea to distract Clark. After all, he deserves this moment, because the people deserve it. And that's what separates him from the rest of the team, and the world. He walks in their midst, and they believe in him. The calls, as it turns out, were really from Bruce. Batman wanted to call him in as things got dicey. Had things gotten worse, Lois would have let him go, and apparently it wasn't just the League who took care of everything. I turned the page and, wow, the entire Justice League and a few people like Harley Quinn have showed up. Is Harley Quinn a good guy now? It's hard to tell these days. Everyone is smiling except for Batman, and Diana tells Clark that the League are his fans too. After all, they wouldn't be here without him. Someone is seriously cutting onions, man. Clark's cousin Kara, aka Supergirl, tells him to take a bow, and the mayor thanks him for stopping by. She says that there's nothing the city could give him other than its appreciation. Perry even sums it up nicely. Everyone here today, citizen and hero alike, are glad that you've made this city this world, your home. Johnny asked his mom if his father would be okay with what he did. Lois replies, "He's the most understanding man I've ever met." This part of the anthology ends with her adding that every now and then, in appreciation for all he's given them, the people get to return the gesture. That's what makes him Superman. Wow, that sums up this anthology nicely. Let's take a closer look. The other stories in the anthology dealt with Clark battling a number of his foes, from Vandal Savage to Brainiac. There was one about him trying to be fast enough to stop a speeding bullet from killing a woman held at gunpoint. Another story had a civilian's point of view of an attack by some random alien. Apparently that one's going to come into play in a later story. The stories were good and all, but I picked the first one for one simple reason. Jurgen's tale gets right down to who Superman is to the people of Earth and his teammates in the Justice League. Superman to me was never about this big blue Boy Scout who could do no wrong and save the day by beating someone up. He's more than that to a lot of people in the DC universe and in the real world. The story encapsulates everything the Man of Tomorrow is. He is an inspirational icon who has stood the test of time, and though many might say he is an irrelevant relic of a bygone era, you might say we need heroes like him, Captain America, and other Golden Age heroes to show the world what's right. Writers may have changed hands over the years, but one thing is certain: the heart of the character always remained the same. Superman is the immigrant from the stars who taught humanity to do better and be better. However, for all his amazing powers and abilities, he's still remarkably human. This is in part due to Jonathan and Martha Kent raising Kal-El of Krypton right, and it's his human aspect which has captivated audiences for 80 years and counting. I should note that while doing the writing duties, Dan Jurgens did a fantastic job from an artistic standpoint. I've always been a fan of his clean, crisp style ever since his run on Sensational Spider-Man back in the day. To see it here once again puts a smile on my face. Was Dan the man who killed Superman back in 1992? Yeah. However, I think that this comic makes up for that landmark issue which ushered in the speculator boom of the 90s. On a personal level, I'm glad I got to read Action Comics 1000. Reading it actually brought back a lot of childhood memories. I remember watching Superman movies and cartoons with my family and liking the character. I stuck with him through every iteration from Super Friends to Supergirl. Even my great-uncle Arnold nicknamed me Superman, and my aunt even made me Superman's cape. Spider-Man may have gotten me into grounded heroes with faults and foibles, but I think it was Superman himself who ended up actually getting me into superheroes in the first place. He was the first superhero I ever saw, and the cycle continues to this day. Happy anniversary, Superman. I know you'll be around for many more years to come. If one hero could stand the test of time, it's Superman. Here's to another 80 years of the Man of Steel. See you in the funny pages.
Yes! A video! And I'll even give you... Wow, that was stupid even for me. I went there, but okay, let's try that again. Fair enough. Just review the comic already. I want to see you get back in the groove after taking such a long break. I mean, what do we do without your reviews? Go to The Last Angry Geek or Linkara? Psh, that's child's play. We need someone who can really tackle the issues. See what I did there with the pun? I'll see myself out.